The fluorescent lights of Chicago's West Side Medical Center hummed with their usual tired persistence, casting harsh shadows across the emergency room's scuffed linoleum floors. It was 11:47 p.m. on a Friday night in late October, and the air carried that particular tension that every ER nurse recognized, the calm before the inevitable storm. Emma Richardson pushed a strand of honey-brown hair behind her ear, her green eyes scanning the patient board with practiced efficiency. 26 years old, exhausted beyond measure, she'd been on her feet for nearly 10 hours of a 12-hour shift. The coffee she'd gulped down at 9 was long gone, replaced by the metallic taste of adrenaline and determination that had become her constant companion. "Emma, we need you in Bay 3, called out Marcus, one of the newer residents, his voice carrying that edge of controlled panic that meant something serious. She grabbed a fresh pair of gloves, her navy blue scrubs already showing the stains of the evening's chaos. A teenager with a skateboard injury, an elderly woman with chest pains, a construction worker with a nail through his hand. Just another Friday in a hospital that served one of Chicago's most challenging neighborhoods. The October wind rattled the ambulance bay doors, carrying with it the scent of coming rain and the distant wail of sirens. Emma had grown up not far from here, in a modest apartment in Pilsen where her mother still lived, battling the early stages of Parkinson's with the same stubborn determination that Emma had inherited. The $2,200 monthly rent on her studio apartment, combined with her mother's medical bills and her own crushing student loan debt, $87,000 and counting, meant that every shift mattered. Every hour of overtime was another small victory against the mountain of financial pressure that never seemed to shrink. "Richardson, your lead on the incoming," barked Dr. Patricia Chen, the attending physician whose reputation for brilliance was matched only by her intolerance for incompetence. "Multi-vehicle collision on the expressway. ETA 3 minutes. We've got one critical coming to us." Emma nodded, her body shifting into that heightened state of focus that separated good nurses from great ones. She'd been working in this ER for 4 years, since graduating from nursing school, and she'd seen things that would haunt her forever, and saved lives that made every sleepless night worthwhile. The automatic doors burst open at 11:53 p.m., but it wasn't the ambulance they'd been expecting. 3 men entered with the kind of presence that made everyone in the ER instinctively step back. They moved with predatory grace, expensive suits doing little to disguise the violence coiled beneath. 2 of them flanked a third man who was being half carried, half dragged between them, a man whose white dress shirt was soaked crimson, his face pale as chalk beneath olive skin and dark stubble. "We need a doctor. Now." The speaker was tall, perhaps 6'3", with salt and pepper hair cut military short, and eyes like chips of Arctic ice. His voice carried absolute authority, the kind that expected immediate obedience. Dr. Chen moved forward, her small frame somehow projecting its own authority. "Sir, you need to—" "No." The single word cut through the air like a blade. "We don't need explanations, questions, or paperwork. We need someone to fix this. Now. We'll pay cash. Whatever it costs." The wounded man's head lolled forward, a groan escaping lips that were turning blue at the edges. Emma's training overrode everything else. The obvious danger, the irregular situation, the voice in her head screaming that this was wrong. All wrong. "Bay 7, she said sharply, already moving. "It's isolated, away from the main floor." Dr. Chen shot her a look that promised a serious conversation later, but nodded. "In the ER, you saved lives first and worried about everything else after." They moved as a unit, the strange procession drawing stares from other patients and staff. Emma pushed through the door to Bay 7, the smallest trauma room, barely large enough for the exam table, equipment, and the bodies now crowding into it. "On the table," she commanded, her voice steady despite the hammering of her heart. "You 2 out. You're contaminating a sterile environment." The salt and pepper man's eyes narrowed. "We stay. Then he dies." Emma met his gaze without flinching, years of dealing with aggressive family members giving her courage she didn't entirely feel. "You can stand outside that window and watch, but in here I'm in charge. Your choice." For a moment the tension was thick enough to choke on. Then, surprisingly, the wounded man spoke, his voice rough with pain but carrying unmistakable command. "Do what she says." The 2 men withdrew to just outside the door, visible through the glass, their postures radiating threat. Dr. Chen was already cutting away the bloody shirt, revealing the damage beneath. Emma's breath caught for just a moment. 2 gunshot wounds, one through the left shoulder, one dangerously close to the liver. The shoulder wound was a through and through, relatively clean. The abdominal wound was the killer, still bleeding sluggishly, the entry point suggesting the bullet might still be inside. "Emma, vitals," Dr. Chen ordered. Emma's hands moved with practiced efficiency, placing the blood pressure cuff, pulse oximeter, hooking up the cardiac monitor. BP 90 over 60 and dropping, heart rate 1 on 10. Oxygen saturation 92%, he's going into shock. Start 2 large bore IVs, get 4 units of O negative up here and prep a surgical kit. We need to stabilize him enough for transport to OR. We can't take him to surgery, Emma said quietly. Those men won't allow it. Too many witnesses, too many records. Dr. Chen's jaw tightened. Then we do what we can here and pray it's enough. This is insane, Richardson. I know. Emma was already establishing IV access, her hands steady despite everything. But he'll die if we don't try. The man on the table was conscious, his eyes tracking their movements. Dark eyes, almost black, set in a face that would have been handsome if not contorted with pain. Mid-30s, Emma estimated, with the kind of presence that suggested he was used to being obeyed. Even bleeding out on an exam table, there was something commanding about him. "This is going to hurt," she told him, her voice softer now, the same tone she used with frightened children. "We're going to help you, but I need you to stay still and stay with me. Can you do that?" His eyes locked onto hers, and for a moment, the chaos of the ER faded. There was intelligence in that gaze and pain and something else. Surprise, maybe, at her directness. "What's your name?" he managed through gritted teeth. "Emma, and you really shouldn't be talking. Dante." A ghost of a smile. Dante Moretti. The name meant nothing to Emma, but she saw Dr. Chen's shoulders tense microscopically. Later, Emma would wonder why she hadn't recognized it. Dante Moretti, whose name appeared in newspapers with careful euphemisms like alleged organized crime figure and business entrepreneur with questionable associations. "Nice to meet you, Dante. Now shut up and let me save your life." Dr. Chen had located the abdominal bullet with the portable ultrasound, lodged against the liver but miraculously having missed major vessels. "We need to remove it and repair the damage. Emma, local anesthetic, surgical kit, and pray we get lucky." What followed was the most intense 30 minutes of Emma's career. Working in an ER bay with equipment designed for stabilization, not surgery, they performed a procedure that should have been done in an operating room with a full surgical team. Dr. Chen's hands were rock steady as she worked, Emma anticipating every need, passing instruments, monitoring vitals, administering medications. The room was silent, except for the beep of monitors and the quiet exchange of medical terminology. Outside, the 2 men watched like statues, their presence a constant reminder of the danger surrounding this entire situation. Emma found herself talking to Dante as she worked, the way she always did with patients hovering on the edge of consciousness. "You're doing great, stay with me. Breathe slowly, that's it, you're going to be fine." Meaningless words maybe, but spoken with genuine care. His eyes never left her face when they were open. During the worst of it, when Dr. Chen was extracting the bullet and he should have been screaming, he bit down on the rolled gauze they'd given him and kept his gaze locked on Emma, as if she were an anchor in a storm of agony. "Got it, Doctor," Chen finally said, dropping a deformed 9mm round into a metal tray with a sharp clink. "No major vessel damage. He's incredibly lucky. Emma, start closing the abdominal wound, layer by layer, and make them neat. I'll handle the shoulder." Emma had stitched hundreds of wounds, but never one like this. Never with a man's life hanging quite so dramatically in the balance. Never with armed men waiting outside. Never with such an acute awareness that she was crossing lines that couldn't be uncrossed. Her hands didn't shake. They never did when it mattered. She worked with careful precision, each stitch placed perfectly, closing the layers of muscle and tissue before finally sealing the skin. Neat, tight sutures that would heal clean if he took care of them. If he survived the next 48 hours. If infection didn't set in. If his enemies, whoever had done this, didn't finish the job. 72 stitches, she murmured, tying off the final suture. "You're going to have quite a scar." Dante's eyes were clearer now, the IV fluids and emergency blood transfusion bringing him back from the edge. "Will you sign it?" That ghost smile again, incongruous given the circumstances. Despite everything, Emma felt her lips twitch. "I don't think that's standard medical practice." Dr. Chen finished bandaging the shoulder wound and stepped back, stripping off her bloody gloves. "He needs hospitalization, antibiotics, monitoring, proper post-operative care. If he leaves here, I give him a 60% chance of survival, maybe less. The door opened and the salt and pepper man entered, his eyes taking in the scene with predatory assessment. Is he stable to move? Absolutely not, Dr. Chen said flatly. We have a facility, medical equipment, someone who can monitor him. His tone made it clear this wasn't a discussion. What does he need? Medications? Supplies? Write a list. We'll pay triple the normal cost. Dr. Chen's face went red. This is medical malpractice. I could lose my license. We should call. You'll call no one. The temperature in the room dropped 20 degrees. You've been well compensated for your discretion. He placed a manila envelope on the counter, thick with cash. Consider this a generous donation to the hospital. Anonymous, of course. Emma watched the envelope land with a sick feeling in her stomach. This was hush money. They were being paid to forget this ever happened, to become complicit in whatever criminal enterprise had led to Dante Moretti bleeding out on their exam table. I need to speak with my patient, Emma heard herself say. Alone. Everyone turned to look at her. Dr. Chen, incredulous, the salt and pepper man evaluating Dante. Dante looked curious. 2 minutes, the man said finally. Then we leave. When the room cleared, Emma moved closer to the exam table. Dante was watching her with those intense dark eyes. His color better now but still pale beneath his Mediterranean complexion. Listen to me carefully, she said, her voice low and urgent. You need real medical care. A hospital. Those wounds can get infected. You could develop complications, internal bleeding. I know the risks. His voice was stronger now. I've been shot before. The casual way he said it made her stomach turn. This isn't a game. You could die. I could die a lot of ways, Emma Richardson. He'd seen her name badge. But not here. Not tonight. Because of you. I did my job. No. He reached out, his hand catching hers before she could step back. His grip was weak but deliberate. You did more than that. You treated me like a person, not a monster, not a paycheck, a person. Emma should have pulled away, should have maintained professional distance, but something in his eyes held her, a vulnerability that seemed impossible in a man who radiated such danger. Take the antibiotics, she said finally. Change the dressings twice a day. Watch for signs of infection, fever, increased redness, pus. If you start feeling worse, if your abdomen becomes rigid or painful, you need emergency care. Will I see you again? The question caught her off guard. I don't think that's a good idea. Probably not. His thumb brushed across her knuckles, the gesture surprisingly gentle. But I'm going to anyway. Before she could respond, the door opened. The 2 men entered with a wheelchair, efficiently transferring Dante into it. Someone had produced a clean shirt, designer label visible even to Emma's untrained eye. They were moving with practiced precision, clearly having done this before. Dr. Chen re-entered, her face carved from stone. The prescriptions and care instructions are there. If he dies, it's on you, not us. Understood. The salt and pepper man handed her another envelope. For your trouble, doctor, and yours, Nurse Richardson. Emma started to refuse, but Dr. Chen shot her a warning look. They took the envelopes, Emma's feeling obscenely thick in her hands. As they wheeled Dante toward the door, he looked back at her one final time. Their eyes met, and Emma felt something shift in her chest. Recognition, maybe, or premonition. The sense that this moment would define everything that came after. Then they were gone, disappearing into the October night like ghosts, leaving only blood-stained linens and the memory of dark eyes that had seen through her in a way no one else ever had. Emma stood frozen, the envelope heavy in her hands, the weight of what she'd just done settling over her like a shroud. Dr. Chen began cleaning up, her movements sharp with suppressed anger. You know what we just did, Richardson? Saved a life. We just became accessories. Dr. Chen stripped off her gloves viciously. That was Dante Moretti. Do you know who that is? Emma shook her head. His family controls half the illegal activity on the South Side. Drugs, gambling, extortion. If it's profitable and criminal, the Morettis have their hands in it. We just saved the life of a very dangerous man. The words should have frightened Emma more than they did. Instead, all she could think about was the way Dante had looked at her. Not like a nurse, not like a tool, but like she mattered. We're required to report gunshot wounds, Dr. Chen continued. But if we do, those men will know. And people who cross the Morettis tend to have short, unpleasant futures. So we don't report it, and we become part of their world. Dr. Chen finally met Emma's eyes. Welcome to the gray area, Richardson. It doesn't wash off. Emma looked down at the envelope in her hands. Later, alone in the staff bathroom, she would count it. $10,000 in $100 bills. Enough to pay her mother's medical bills for 3 months. Enough to make a dent in her student loans. Enough to make her complicit. She tucked the envelope into her locker, her hands trembling now that the adrenaline was fading. When she looked at her reflection in the small mirror, she barely recognized the woman staring back, someone who had just crossed a line she hadn't even known was there. The rest of her shift passed in a blur. Emma moved through her duties on autopilot, treating patients, dispensing medications, filling out charts. But her mind was elsewhere, replaying every moment in Bay 7. At 6:47 a.m., as dawn broke over Chicago's skyline and her shift finally ended, Emma walked out into the cold October morning. The first drops of rain were beginning to fall, and the air smelled of wet concrete and approaching winter. She should have felt relief that it was over. Instead, she couldn't shake the feeling that something had begun, something that would change everything. Somewhere across the city, Dante Moretti was recovering, surrounded by his soldiers and his secrets. And for reasons Emma couldn't explain, she found herself hoping he would survive, that he would keep his impossible promise, that she would see those dark, knowing eyes again. The rain began to fall in earnest as Emma walked toward the bus stop, mixing with tears she hadn't realized she was crying. Tears for what she'd done, for what it meant, for the innocence she'd somehow lost in the space of 30 minutes. Behind her, the emergency room lights blazed against the gray dawn. Ahead, her future waited, uncertain, dangerous, and forever altered. She had stitched Dante Moretti's wounds and, without meaning to, stitched herself into a story that had only just begun. The safe house was located in Oak Park, a quiet suburb west of Chicago, where tree-lined streets and Victorian homes created an illusion of normalcy. The 3-story brownstone looked like any other on the block, well-maintained, unremarkable, forgettable, which was exactly the point. Dante Moretti opened his eyes to unfamiliar ceiling moldings and the sharp, persistent ache that radiated from his shoulder and abdomen. Pale morning light filtered through heavy curtains, and for a disorienting moment, he couldn't remember where he was or how he'd gotten there. Then memory crashed back. The ambush outside the warehouse, bullets tearing through flesh, the desperate drive to the hospital, and her, Emma Richardson. Her face materialized in his mind with crystalline clarity. Those intelligent green eyes, the set of her jaw as she'd ordered his men out of the trauma room, the gentle steadiness of her hands as she'd worked to save his life, the way she'd spoken to him, not with fear or false bravado, but with genuine human compassion. In 37 years of life, most of it spent in a world where loyalty was bought and trust was a liability, Dante had met countless people. He'd learned to read them instantly, their weaknesses, their prices, their breaking points. It was a survival skill in his line of work, as essential as knowing how to shoot or when to negotiate. But Emma Richardson had defied categorization. She hadn't treated him like a monster or a meal ticket. She'd simply treated him. And something about that simple act of humanity had lodged itself in his chest more permanently than any bullet. "You're awake." The voice came from the doorway where Vincent Calabresi stood, the salt and pepper man who'd been Dante's right hand for 12 years. "Doc says you're lucky to be alive. Another inch to the right, that liver shot would have killed you in minutes." Dante shifted carefully, testing the limits of his injuries. Everything hurt, but it was manageable pain, the kind that reminded you that you'd survived. "How long was I out?" 18 hours. It's Saturday afternoon." Vincent moved into the room, his face carved from its usual granite expression. "We've got Dr. Rashid downstairs. He's been monitoring you, changing your IV. Says whoever stitched you up did exceptional work." "The nurse." Dante's voice was rough. "Emma." Vincent's eyes narrowed slightly. "The nurse did her job and got paid well for it. That's the end of the story." "No." Dante pushed himself up, ignoring the protest from his wounds. "Find out everything about her. Where she lives, where she grew up, family, finances, everything." "Boss, that's not everything, Vincent." Dante's tone carried the weight of absolute authority, the voice that had built an empire from the ruins of his father's smaller operation. "I want to know who she is." Vincent hesitated, then nodded curtly. In their world, orders were followed. Questions were minimal. "I'll have a full report by tonight." After Vincent left, Dante lay back against the pillows, his mind circling obsessively around those 30 minutes in the emergency room. He'd been shot 3 times before. Occupational hazard in his line of work. But he'd never felt this before, this gnawing need to understand someone, to see them again. It was dangerous. Weakness was dangerous. And Emma Richardson was a weakness he couldn't afford. But knowing that didn't make it stop. Across the city, Emma Richardson was discovering that normalcy was impossible to reclaim. She'd barely slept after her shift, collapsing into her studio apartment at 7:30 Saturday morning, only to lie awake staring at the water-stained ceiling. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Dante Moretti's face, pale with blood loss, tight with pain, but somehow still commanding, still present. The $10,000 sat in her underwear drawer, wrapped in the manila envelope. Blood money, hush money, money that could solve so many problems but came with a price she was only beginning to understand. By Saturday afternoon, exhaustion finally dragged her under into fitful sleep, plagued by dreams of dark eyes and darker secrets. She woke at 6 p.m. to 17 missed calls, 12 from her mother, 5 from unknown numbers. Her heart hammering, Emma called her mother back immediately. "Emma, finally!" Rose Richardson's voice carried relief and agitation in equal measure. "I've been trying to reach you all day. Are you okay?" "I'm fine, Mom, just sleeping after a long shift. What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. That's the strange part." Her mother's tone shifted to confusion. "I went to pick up my prescriptions today and the pharmacist said they'd already been paid for. All of them. Through the end of the year." Emma's blood went cold. "What? I thought maybe you'd done it, but it was cash, Emma. Nearly $2,000 in cash. Who would do something like that?" Emma's mind raced. "I don't know, Mom. Maybe there was a charity program And Mrs. Chen from downstairs said she saw a very nice car parked outside our building this morning. Black. Expensive. Said a man in a suit was watching the entrance for over an hour." The cold feeling spread through Emma's entire body. "Did she get a description?" "Tall, gray hair. Looked like he could be in the movies." Rose paused. "Emma, what's going on? You sound frightened." "I'm not." The lie tasted bitter. "It's probably nothing. Listen, I'll come by tomorrow, okay? We can talk then." After hanging up, Emma sat on the edge of her bed, her hands shaking. They'd found her mother, found where she lived, what medications she needed. They'd paid for them, a gesture that could be interpreted as kindness or as a message. "We know where you are. We know what matters to you. We can reach you anytime we want." Emma's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Dr. Chen wants to see you. Monday morning before your shift. Her office, come alone." The weekend crawled by with agonizing slowness. Emma tried to maintain her routine. Grocery shopping, laundry, a visit to her mother where she lied convincingly about the mysterious benefactor. But she felt watched everywhere she went. The black sedan parked across from her building. The man in the coffee shop who seemed too interested in his newspaper. The sense of eyes tracking her every movement. Sunday night, she barely slept. Every sound in her building became a threat, every shadow a potential danger. She'd saved a man's life, and somehow that simple act had pulled her into a world she didn't understand. Monday morning arrived gray and cold, late October asserting itself with wind that cut through Emma's jacket as she hurried into Westside Medical Center at 6 a.m. Dr. Su Chen's office was on the administrative floor, a small space cluttered with medical journals and coffee cups that had seen better days. Dr. Chen looked like she hadn't slept much either. "Close the door, Richardson." Emma complied, her stomach nodding. "I've been practicing medicine for 23 years. Dr. Chen began without preamble. "I've worked in this ER for 15 of those years. I've seen gunshot victims, stabbing victims, people beaten within an inch of their lives. I've treated gang members, drug dealers, people who've done terrible things, and I've never, not once, compromised my ethics. Dr. Chen, until Friday night." The older woman's eyes were hard. "I've spent the entire weekend researching Dante Moretti. Do you know what I found? 17 suspected murders, though nothing proven. Connections to drug trafficking, illegal gambling, loan sharking, extortion. His family organization is responsible for God knows how much misery in this city. And we saved his life." Emma found her voice. "We're doctors, we save lives, that's what we do. We're also mandatory reporters. Gunshot wounds have to be reported to the police. It's not optional, Richardson. It's the law. So report it now." Dr. Chen's laugh was bitter. "And get us both killed? I'm not naive. Those men knew exactly what they were doing by coming to us. They chose a hospital in a neighborhood where people know not to ask questions. They chose an ER that's understaffed and overworked. And they chose the end of a Friday night shift when everyone's exhausted and not thinking clearly. What do you want from me? I want you to understand what you've done. What we've both done. Dr. Chen leaned forward. I got a delivery Saturday morning. $20,000 in cash, left in a box outside my apartment. My apartment, Richardson. They know where I live. They know where you live. We're compromised. The weight of it settled over Emma like a physical thing. So what do? We keep our mouths shut. We do our jobs. We pretend Friday night never happened. Dr. Chen's voice dropped. And we pray that's the end of it. But Emma could see in the older woman's eyes that neither of them believed that. Her shift that day was routine. A child with a broken arm, an elderly man with pneumonia, a woman in early labor who needed transport to the maternity ward. Normal ER chaos that should have been comforting in its familiarity. Instead, Emma felt like she was moving through water, every action requiring conscious effort. She kept watching the ambulance bay doors, half expecting Dante Moretti to be wheeled through them again. During her lunch break, she sat in her car in the parking garage and finally opened her laptop to search for information she'd been avoiding. Dante Moretti. The search results were extensive and damning. Alleged organized crime figure Dante Moretti arraigned on racketeering charges. Case dismissed due to lack of evidence. Federal investigation into Moretti family operations stalls as witnesses recant testimony. Suspected drug trafficking operation nets 17 arrests. Dante Moretti named but not charged. Photos showed a man in expensive suits entering courthouses, his face impassive, flanked by high-priced lawyers. Other photos were grainier, surveillance shots of him meeting with known criminals, entering properties owned by shell corporations. But none of the photos showed what Emma had seen in that trauma room: vulnerability, pain, and something that had looked almost like gratitude. She closed the laptop feeling sick. That evening, as she walked to the bus stop after her shift, Emma noticed the black sedan immediately. It was parked across the street, engine running, windows tinted dark. Her pace quickened, her heart hammering against her ribs. The car didn't move, but she felt its presence like a weight between her shoulder blades all the way to her apartment. In the Oak Park safe house, Dante was healing faster than Dr. Rashid had predicted. The abdominal wound was clean, no signs of infection, the stitches holding perfectly. The shoulder was more problematic, limited range of motion, persistent pain, but manageable. What wasn't manageable was the obsession. Vincent had delivered the report Saturday night. Emma Rose Richardson, age 26, born and raised in Chicago's Pilsen neighborhood. Father died when she was 12. Construction accident. Mother, Rose Richardson, age 54, diagnosed with early-onset Parkinson's 2 years ago. Emma worked at Westside Medical Center, had for 4 years since graduating from nursing school. Student loan debt of $87,000. Lived alone in a studio apartment. Rent $2,200 monthly. No boyfriend, no significant relationships in the past 18 months. Worked doubles when she could get them. Sent money to her mother regularly. No criminal record. Not even a parking ticket. She was, by all accounts, exactly what she'd seemed. A good person trying to survive in a city that made survival difficult, which made what Dante was doing indefensible. He'd had her mother's prescriptions paid for, a gesture that Vincent had argued against, but Dante had insisted on. He'd assigned rotating surveillance on both Emma and her mother. He'd even had someone plant a small GPS tracker on Emma's phone when she'd left it unattended in the ER break room. "This is dangerous, boss," Vincent said Tuesday evening, as they reviewed security footage. "You're getting emotionally invested in a civilian, in a witness. She's not a witness. She never saw who shot me. She never asked questions. She treated you. She knows you exist. In our world, that's enough." Vincent's expression was grave. "Some of the other families are already asking questions about what happened Thursday night, about how you survived. If they learn about the nurse, they won't. You can't guarantee that." Vincent stood, his frustration evident. "I've known you since you were 25, Dante. I watched you build this operation from almost nothing after your father died. I've never seen you make decisions based on emotion. Don't start now." After Vincent left, Dante sat in the study watching surveillance footage of Emma leaving her apartment building, heading to work, stopping at a small grocery store. Her life was so ordinary, so removed from his world of violence and moral compromise. She represented something he'd lost so long ago he'd forgotten it existed. Innocence. Not naivety, but genuine goodness. The kind of person who chose nursing because she wanted to help people. Who sent money to her sick mother even when she couldn't afford it? Who worked double shifts and still treated every patient with compassion? Dante had been raised in the family business. His father, Lorenzo Moretti, had controlled a modest criminal enterprise on the South Side. Protection rackets, some gambling, nothing sophisticated. But Lorenzo had been old school, resistant to change, and when rival families started expanding, he'd been outmaneuvered. Dante, freshly graduated from Northwestern with a business degree his father had insisted on, had watched the empire crumble. When Lorenzo died of a heart attack, some said natural, some said helped along, 25-year-old Dante had been left with debts, enemies, and a choice: walk away or fight. He'd fought, and he'd won. Brutally, efficiently, demonstrating a capacity for strategic violence that had surprised everyone, including himself. 12 years later, the Moretti organization controlled territory from the South Side to parts of the western suburbs. They'd diversified. Drugs, yes, but also legitimate businesses used for laundering. Real estate, restaurants, construction companies. Dante had built an empire, and he'd done it by never allowing himself to be weak, by never forming attachments that could be exploited, by keeping everyone at arm's length and trusting almost no one. Now, watching Emma Richardson walk into her apartment building, groceries in hand, exhaustion evident in the slope of her shoulders, Dante felt something he'd thought he'd trained out of himself years ago. The desire to protect someone, not as an asset or a strategic necessity, but simply because he wanted to see her safe. It was the most dangerous thing he'd felt in years. Wednesday night, Emma's unease crystallized into certainty. She was closing her apartment door, arms full of mail, when she noticed it. A small envelope on the floor just inside the threshold. Plain white, expensive paper, her name written in elegant script. No postage. Hand-delivered. With trembling fingers, Emma opened it. Inside was a single card embossed with a phone number and a brief message. I'm told I owe you my life. I'd like to thank you properly. Call when you're ready. DM. Emma's legs went weak. She sank onto her second-hand couch, staring at the card as if it might explode. This was insane. She should destroy it. Forget it existed. Pretend none of this had happened. Instead, she found herself staring at the number, memorizing it without meaning to. Her phone rang, making her jump. Unknown number. Against her better judgment, she answered. Hello? Emma Richardson? The voice was female, professional, slightly accented. Please hold for Mr. Moretti. Before Emma could respond, there was a click, and then that voice, the one she'd been hearing in her dreams for 5 days. Emma, I'm glad you made it home safely. Her blood ran cold and hot simultaneously. How did you? I know that what I'm about to say will frighten you, Dante continued, his voice calm, almost gentle. But I need you to listen. You're in danger. Not from me. From people who want to hurt me. And the best way to hurt me is through the people He paused. The people connected to me. I'm not connected to you. Emma's voice shook despite her effort to control it. I did my job. That's all. That's all you did. But perception is reality in my world. You were seen entering that hospital. Security cameras, other patients, staff, people talk, and some dangerous people are asking questions. Emma's apartment suddenly felt too small, too exposed. What do you want? To keep you safe. I have people watching you and your mother. Not to threaten you, to protect you. The black sedan, the man in the coffee shop. Yes. No apology in his tone, just acknowledgement. I know how this looks. I know what I am, what people say I am. But I keep my word, Emma. And I gave my word that I'd see you again. I didn't specify under what circumstances. This is insane. Emma stood pacing her small apartment. I don't live in your world. I save lives. I help people. You saved mine. Something in his voice softened. You showed me kindness when you had every reason not to. Do you have any idea how rare that is? In my life, everyone wants something. Everyone has an angle. But you just helped. Because it's my job. It was more than that. Certainty filled his words. I saw your face, Emma. I was dying on that table, and you looked at me like I was worth saving. Not my money, not my connections. Me. Emma felt tears burning behind her eyes. Please, just leave me alone. Let me go back to my life. A long silence. When Dante spoke again, his voice carried a weight that made her shiver. I wish I could, but it's too late for that. You're in this now, whether either of us wants it or not. So I can either protect you properly, or I can walk away and hope the people looking for weakness don't find you. That's not a choice. No, he agreed. It's not. Keep the card, Emma. When you're ready to talk, really talk, not like this. Call me. But in the meantime, those men watching you, they stay non-negotiable. And if I go to the police? Another pause, longer this time. Then I'd be disappointed, and they'd be unable to help you. The people I'm protecting you from don't care about police. He hung up before she could respond. Emma stood in her apartment, the card clutched in her hand, her entire body shaking. She should be terrified. She was terrified. But underneath the fear was something else, something she didn't want to examine too closely. The memory of dark eyes that had looked at her like she mattered. A voice that carried command but had softened when speaking her name. The realization that Dante Moretti, crime boss, suspected killer, dangerous man, had just told her the truth. She was in danger, and he was trying to protect her. Emma walked to her window and looked down at the street. The black sedan was there, as it had been every night. For the first time, instead of fear, she felt something uncomfortably close to relief. She was being watched, but maybe, just maybe, she was also being kept safe. The distinction felt important, even if she didn't fully understand why. That night, Emma barely slept. The card sat on her nightstand, the phone number gleaming in the darkness like a promise, or a threat. At 3 a.m. she finally admitted what she'd been avoiding since Friday night. Something fundamental had shifted. She'd stepped across a line, and there was no going back to the person she'd been before. The question now wasn't whether she was involved with Dante Moretti's world. It was how deep she was willing to go, and what it would cost her when the bill finally came due. The third-floor walk-up on Ashland Avenue had been Emma's home for 2 years. A modest studio with creaking radiators and a view of the alley behind a Korean grocery store. It was small, drafty in winter, and the upstairs neighbor played piano at odd hours. But it was hers, a space she'd carved out through endless shifts and careful budgeting. Now, standing at her window at 6 a.m. on Thursday morning, watching the black sedan idle in its usual spot, Emma realized that privacy was an illusion she'd lost forever. She'd called in sick to work, her first sick day in over a year. Dr. Chen had sounded relieved rather than concerned, as if Emma's absence somehow reduced the hospital's liability in whatever nightmare they'd become entangled in. The card sat on her kitchen counter next to her untouched coffee. She'd memorized the number without meaning to, her fingers hovering over her phone a dozen times during the sleepless night. "Call when you're ready," he'd said. The question was, ready for what? At 6:47 a.m. her phone rang. Unknown number. Her heart hammered as she answered. "Ms. Richardson." Vincent Calabresi's gravelly voice, unmistakable. "There's a car downstairs. Mr. Moretti would like to speak with you. In person." It's not a request, but it's not a threat either. You have questions, he has answers. Neutral location, public place. You'll be driven there and back, completely safe." Emma's laugh was bitter. "Safe, that's relative, isn't it? More than you know." Vincent's tone carried an edge of something that might have been respect. "You can refuse. The car will leave, but the protection stays, and the questions you have won't get answered. Your choice." Emma looked around her apartment, at the life she'd built through hard work and determination, at the normal existence that now felt impossibly distant. "Where?" she asked. "Millennium Park. The Bean. 30 minutes. Wear something warm. It's cold today." The line went dead. The black sedan was a Mercedes. Leather interior pristine. Windows tinted dark enough to obscure the outside world. The driver was young, Latino, with careful eyes that tracked everything. He didn't speak, didn't introduce himself, simply held the door open and waited. Emma climbed in, her hands shaking despite her attempt at composure. The drive took 17 minutes through early morning Chicago traffic. Emma watched the city pass, neighborhoods she knew intimately, streets she'd walked countless times. Everything looked different through tinted windows, as if she'd crossed into a parallel version of her life. Millennium Park was relatively empty at this hour, a few joggers and early morning tourists. The driver pulled up to the Randolph Street entrance, came around to open her door. Through the park, east side of the Bean. "He's waiting." Emma walked through the plaza, her breath forming clouds in the October air. The temperature had dropped overnight, Chicago reminding everyone that winter was coming. She'd worn her heavy jacket, jeans, comfortable boots, practical clothing that felt like armor. Cloud Gate, locals called it the Bean, loomed ahead, its reflective surface catching the morning light and the skeletal trees surrounding it. And there, standing at the eastern curve where the sculpture's distortion was most pronounced, was Dante Moretti. He was dressed casually, dark jeans, a charcoal wool coat, black scarf. Without the blood and pain, Emma could see him properly. Tall, perhaps 6'1", with the kind of presence that drew eyes even in anonymity. His olive skin had regained its color, his dark hair slightly longer than business length touching his collar. He looked younger than she'd thought, early to mid-30s, with sharp cheekbones and a mouth that suggested both cruelty and unexpected gentleness. He turned as she approached, and those eyes, dark as espresso, intense and intelligent, locked onto hers with an impact that was almost physical. "Emma, thank you for coming." His voice was different without the rasp of pain, cultured, educated, with just a hint of Chicago accent underneath. "Did I have a choice?" She stopped about 6 feet away, maintaining distance. "Always." He gestured to a nearby bench. "Will you sit? I promise this is just a conversation, no threats, no coercion, just honesty." Emma sat cautiously, and Dante settled beside her, careful not to crowd her space. She noticed he moved stiffly, favoring his left side where the abdominal wound was. "How are you healing?" The question escaped before she could stop it, the nurse in her, unable to ignore obvious discomfort. A slight smile touched his lips. "Well enough. Your stitches held perfectly. No infection, no complications. Dr. Rashid says whoever worked on me knew exactly what they were doing. Basic field medicine. Anyone with training could have." "That's not true, and you know it." Dante turned to face her fully. "I've been shot before, Emma. I've been patched up by doctors who've been doing emergency medicine for decades. What you did, in those conditions, with that equipment, it was exceptional." The compliment made her uncomfortable. "Why am I here, Dante?" He appreciated the directness. She could see it in his eyes. "Because you deserve the truth about who I am, what I do, and why your life has been turned upside down. I know who you are. I looked you up. Alleged organized crime figure. Suspected murders, drug trafficking, the list goes on. Alleged. Suspected." His voice carried a trace of dark humor. "Notice how nothing sticks? That's not luck, Emma. That's power. That's what happens when you own lawyers, judges, when you know where all the bodies are buried, literally and figuratively." His frankness shocked her. "You're admitting, I'm admitting nothing that would hold up in court. But between us, here, now, yes. I run a criminal organization. We traffic drugs, run gambling operations, loan money at rates that would make legitimate banks jealous. We hurt people who cross us. Sometimes we kill them." He paused, watching her reaction. "I'm telling you this because you need to understand the reality of what you stepped into." Emma's stomach churned. "Then why save you? Why not let you die if you're a monster?" Dante supplied. "Because that's not who you are. You're someone who sees a person in pain and helps regardless of who they are. It's admirable. It's also dangerous. Because of your enemies. Because of my world." He gestured vaguely at the park around them. "Out here, in the normal world, morality is relatively simple. There are laws, consequences, social contracts. In my world, the only law is power. The only consequence is weakness. And the only contract is blood." Emma hugged herself against the cold and against the reality of what he was describing. "The men watching me, my mother. Are we in danger?" "Yes." No hesitation. No sugarcoating. "Last Thursday, I was ambushed by members of the Russo family, a rival organization that's been trying to move into our territory. They almost succeeded in killing me. If they had, there would have been a war. But I survived, which means they failed. And failures have consequences. What does that have to do with me?" Dante's jaw tightened. "Someone inside my organization told the Russos where I'd be that night. A traitor. And when you have a traitor, you have a leak. Which means the Russos probably know that I was taken to West Side Medical Center. They probably know a nurse treated me. And if they know your name, they'll come after me." Emma's voice was barely a whisper. "To get to you. To send a message. To prove I'm vulnerable. To demonstrate that even my secrets can be exposed." Dante leaned forward, his intensity palpable. "I don't form attachments, Emma. I don't have girlfriends or close friends or anyone who could be used as leverage. It's how I've survived this long. But you became a variable I didn't anticipate. I didn't ask for this. I know." Something softened in his expression. "Which is why I'm giving you a choice. A real one." Emma looked at him, at this dangerous man who was somehow being more honest with her than anyone had been in years. "What choice?" "Option 1. I increase your security. Keep people watching you and your mother 24/7. You go about your life as normally as possible, but you're always aware that you're being protected. Eventually, when I've dealt with the Russo situation, the protection becomes unnecessary and you can go back to your life. And option 2? Dante hesitated, and Emma realized with shock that he was nervous. This man who commanded soldiers and built criminal empires was nervous about what he was about to say. Option 2. You disappear. Temporarily. I have a secure location outside the city. Comfortable, safe, completely isolated. You stay there until the threat is neutralized. Days, maybe a couple of weeks at most. Your mother would be protected here. You'd be completely safe. You mean protective custody. I'd be a prisoner. You'd be a guest, free to move around the property, access to anything you need. I have staff, a housekeeper, security, a driver. You wouldn't be alone, and you wouldn't be uncomfortable. Emma stood abruptly, pacing in front of the bench. This is insane. A week ago I was just a nurse. I had student loans and a sick mother and a small apartment, but it was my life. Now you're telling me I have to choose between being constantly watched or becoming a prisoner because I saved your life? Because you were unlucky enough to be working that night. Dante stood as well, his movements still careful. Emma, I hate this. I hate that I've dragged you into my world. If I could undo it, I would, but I can't. All I can do is try to keep you safe until you can go back to being just a nurse. Can I? Emma turned to face him. Can I really go back after knowing what I know, after being part of this? I don't know, Dante admitted. Honestly, I don't know, but I'm going to try to make it possible. The vulnerability in his voice caught Emma off guard. This wasn't the face of organized crime, this was just a man, wounded and uncertain, trying to fix a problem he'd inadvertently created. Why? She asked quietly. Why do you care? You barely know me. Dante moved closer, stopping just within her personal space. This close, Emma could see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes, the faint scar along his jawline, the stubble that suggested he'd left in a hurry this morning. Because you looked at me like I was human, he said softly. Not a monster, not a means to an end, just human. Do you have any idea how rare that is? In my life, everyone wants something. Everyone has an agenda, but you just helped. And when I was lying on that table, barely conscious, all I could think was that if I died, the last face I saw would be someone genuinely good. It felt important. Emma's breath caught. The honesty in his voice, the rawness of the admission. It broke through her defenses in a way that threats never could. I need time, she heard herself say. To think, to process. Take whatever you need. Dante stepped back, giving her space. But while you're thinking, the protection stays. Non-negotiable. What if I don't want it? Then I'll respect that, and I'll pray that I'm wrong about the danger. But I won't stop trying to keep you safe, Emma, even if you hate me for it. Before she could respond, Dante's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, and Emma saw his expression change, shuddering, hardening into something dangerous. I have to go. His voice was different now. All business. Vincent will take you wherever you want to go. Home, your mother's, work, anywhere. He paused, one hand reaching toward her before stopping. I'm sorry, Emma, for all of it. Then he was walking away, pulling out his phone, becoming someone else. The crime boss, the dangerous man, the person who made people disappear. Emma watched him go, her mind spinning. Nothing about this made sense. She should hate him, should be terrified, should want nothing more than to run as far as possible from Dante Moretti and his world of violence. Instead, all she could think about was the look in his eyes when he'd said she made him feel human. Vincent drove her home in silence, but before she got out, he spoke. For what it's worth, I've known Dante for 12 years. I've never seen him like this. Protective of someone outside the organization, it's unprecedented. Is that supposed to make me feel better? Emma asked. It's supposed to help you understand that whatever he's feeling, it's real. And in our world, real feelings are dangerous. They get people killed. Vincent's ice blue eyes met hers in the rearview mirror. Think about that when you're making your choice. Emma spent Thursday in a daze, her apartment feeling simultaneously too small and too empty. She tried to do normal things, laundry, reading, watching television, but nothing held her attention. Her phone rang repeatedly, her mother checking in, a nursing colleague asking if she was okay, Dr. Chen calling to discuss protocol. Emma ignored them all. At 8 p.m., as darkness settled over Chicago and the temperature dropped toward freezing, Emma made a decision. She picked up her phone and dialed the number she'd memorized. It rang once. Emma. Dante's voice, immediate recognition. I need more answers, she said. Real answers. About your world. About the danger. About what happens next. A pause. Where are you? Home. I'll send a car. 20 minutes. Dress warm. We're going somewhere we can talk properly. Where? Somewhere I can show you the truth, all of it. The car arrived exactly 20 minutes later. This time, it was a different vehicle, a dark blue SUV with bulletproof glass. Emma could tell from the thickness. The driver was the same young Latino man from that morning, but now there was another man in the front passenger seat, his jacket bulging slightly at the shoulder, in a way that suggested a weapon. They drove north, through neighborhoods Emma knew and then into areas she didn't, finally crossing into Evanston and then beyond, toward suburbs where houses grew larger and more isolated. After 40 minutes, they turned down a private road flanked by old-growth trees, eventually stopping at a gate with discreet security cameras. The gate opened silently, and they continued up a winding drive. The house that appeared was stunning, a modern architectural masterpiece of glass and steel, 3 stories, situated on what looked like several acres of wooded property. Lights glowed from within, warm against the cold night. Mr. Moretti's primary residence, the driver said, the first words he'd spoken. He doesn't bring people here. You should understand what that means. Emma understood. This was trust, or the illusion of it. Dante was waiting at the front entrance, dressed now in dark slacks and a burgundy sweater that made him look less like a crime boss and more like someone who belonged in this beautiful house. Welcome, he said simply, gesturing her inside. The interior was breathtaking. High ceilings, minimalist furniture that probably cost more than Emma made in a year, art on the walls that she suspected was original. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the property, darkness beyond punctuated by subtle landscape lighting. This is where you live? Emma asked, unable to hide her awe. One of several properties. This is the one I consider home. Dante led her into a large living room with a fireplace already crackling with warmth. Can I get you something? Coffee? Wine? Water? Water is fine. He returned moments later with 2 glasses of water, settling into an armchair across from the sofa where she'd perched nervously. You said you wanted truth, Dante began. Ask me anything. Emma took a breath. How many people have you killed? He didn't flinch. Personally, 4. Men who betrayed the organization, who posed existential threats. I didn't enjoy it, but I didn't lose sleep over it either. Through my orders? More. I don't know the exact number. Enough that I've stopped counting. The casual admission should have terrified her. Instead, Emma found herself appreciating the honesty. The drugs you traffic, do you use them? Never. I've seen what they do to people. It's hypocritical, I know, profiting from something I consider poison. I tell myself we're providing a service people want that if we didn't do it, someone worse would. The truth is it's profitable, and I'm good at it. Do you have family? Besides your organization? Something flickered in Dante's expression. Pain, quickly suppressed. My father died 12 years ago. My mother left when I was 8, went back to Italy. I have no siblings, no wife, no children. The organization is my family. That's lonely. It's safe. Dante leaned forward. Emma, every attachment is a weapon someone can use against you. My father learned that the hard way. He loved my mother, and when she left, it broke him, made him weak, made him vulnerable. I swore I'd never make that mistake. Until now, Emma said quietly. Dante's eyes locked on hers. Until now. The admission hung between them, weighted with implications neither wanted to examine. Show me, Emma said suddenly. You said you'd show me the truth. Show me your world. What you actually do. Dante studied her for a long moment. Are you sure? Once you see it, you can't unsee it. I'm sure. He stood, offering his hand. Then come with me. They went down a hallway, through a door that required a biometric scan into an elevator Emma hadn't noticed, down one level into what looked like a command center. The room was large, windowless, lined with monitors showing various security feeds. 3 people worked at computers, 2 men, 1 woman, all professional, all armed. They looked up when Dante entered, nodding respectfully. This is the nerve center, Dante explained. From here we monitor all our operations. Legitimate businesses, underground operations, security for key personnel. He gestured to one bank of monitors. These are our restaurants, 4 in the city, 2 in suburbs. Completely legitimate, actually profitable. They also serve as meeting places and fronts for laundering. Another set of screens. These are our gambling operations. 3 sports books, 2 poker rooms, 1 casino operating in the back of a private club. All illegal, all extremely profitable. More screens. Distribution networks for narcotics. We don't manufacture, that's too risky. We import and distribute marijuana, cocaine, prescription opioids. We've stayed away from fentanyl. Too dangerous, too unpredictable. Emma felt sick, but she forced herself to keep looking. This was the reality. This was what she'd become entangled with. And this, Dante said, pulling up a different feed, is the Russo family's primary warehouse. They think we don't know about it. They're wrong. The screen showed an industrial building clearly under surveillance. Several men moved in and out, loading trucks. Next week, Dante said quietly, we're going to hit that warehouse, take their product, their money, send a message that the ambush on me was unacceptable. People will die, Emma whispered. Probably. Dante turned to her. I could lie, tell you we'll try to avoid casualties. But the truth is, in my world, violence is currency. You either spend it or have it spent on you. The Russos tried to kill me. If I don't respond, I look weak, and weakness invites more attacks. Emma backed away, her breath coming short. This is evil. You know that, right? What you do, it destroys lives. Yes, no defensiveness, no justification. It does. And I do it anyway because the alternative is being destroyed myself. I didn't choose this life, Emma. I inherited it, and I'm very good at it. You could walk away. Dante's laugh was bitter. You don't walk away from this world. You leave in handcuffs or a coffin. Those are the only exits. Emma moved toward the elevator, needing out, needing air. Dante followed, his expression unreadable. Back upstairs, Emma stood at the windows, staring out at the manicured grounds that concealed so much darkness. Why did you show me that? She asked. Why be so honest? Because you deserve to make an informed choice. Dante moved to stand beside her, maintaining distance. About whether to let me protect you. About whether you want any part of my world. You needed to see who I really am, what I really do. And if I walk away, if I tell you I want nothing to do with you, then Vincent will drive you home, and you'll have security you'll never see. I'll handle the Russo situation, eliminate the threat, and eventually, you can go back to your life. I'll stay away. You'll never hear from me again. It should have been what she wanted. Safety, distance, a return to normalcy. Instead, Emma heard herself ask, and if I don't walk away? Dante turned to her slowly, surprise and something darker flickering in his eyes. Then you need to understand what that means. It means choosing to enter my world, knowing full well what exists here. It means accepting protection that comes with strings. It means people will see you as connected to me, which makes you a target. It means you can never fully go back to who you were before. But I wouldn't be a prisoner. No. You'd be... He paused, searching for words. You'd be under my protection, part of my life, however peripherally. And I'd do everything in my power to keep you safe while trying not to destroy who you are. Emma looked at him, really looked at him, past the danger, past the violence, past the criminal empire. She saw a man who'd been shaped by brutality into something hard and unyielding, but who still somehow had enough humanity left to care about a stranger's well-being. I need to think, she said finally. Really think. Not pressured, not rushed. I need time. Take whatever you need. Dante pulled out his phone. Vincent will take you home. The protection continues regardless of what you decide. And Emma, he waited until she looked at him. Thank you. For what? For not running screaming. For listening. For trying to understand. A hint of smile. Most people would have run by now. Maybe I'm not most people. No, Dante agreed softly. You're definitely not. The drive home was silent. Emma's mind replaying everything she'd seen and heard. The command center. The casual discussion of violence. The stunning honesty of a man who dealt in lies and deception for a living. Back in her apartment, Emma stood at the window watching the black sedan take up its familiar position. Protection or surveillance, did the distinction even matter anymore? Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. She opened it to find a single message. Whatever you decide, I meant what I said. You made me feel human. That's worth protecting, even if you choose to walk away. D. Emma read the message 3 times, then set her phone down and walked to her bedroom. She pulled out the $10,000 from her drawer, the money she'd been paid for saving his life. Blood money. Hush money. Money that represented a choice she'd made without fully understanding the implications. She could give it back, could insist on a clean break, could try to reclaim the innocence she'd lost, or she could accept that the line had already been crossed, that she'd already made her choice the moment she'd stitched Dante Moretti's wounds and looked into his eyes and seen something worth saving. Emma didn't sleep that night. Instead, she sat at her window watching the sedan, watching the city, thinking about choices and consequences and the strange twist of fate that had brought a dying crime boss into her life. By dawn, she still didn't have an answer, but she knew with absolute certainty that whatever she decided would change everything. The question was whether she had the courage to choose the dangerous path or the wisdom to walk away. Emma made her decision on Friday morning, standing in her apartment with the first snow of the season falling outside her window. Chicago was transforming into a winter wonderland, white flakes covering the grime and chaos with temporary beauty. She picked up her phone and dialed the number she now knew by heart. Emma. Dante answered immediately, his voice tense with anticipation. "I'm not walking away," she said quietly. "But I need you to understand something. I'm not doing this because I approve of what you do. I'm doing this because the alternative is living in fear, looking over my shoulder forever. If I'm going to be in danger anyway, I'd rather face it head on." A long silence. Then, "I understand. And Emma, thank you for trusting me." "I don't trust you," she corrected. "Not completely, but I believe you'll keep me safe. There's a difference." "Fair enough." She could hear the hint of smile in his voice. "Can you take a leave from work? 2 weeks, maybe 3? "I can try." Emma had accrued vacation time she'd never used. Too worried about money to take time off. "Vincent will help arrange it. Medical leave, family emergency, whatever works. Pack enough for a month just in case. Comfortable clothes, anything you need. We leave tomorrow morning." "Where are we going?" "Somewhere safe. Somewhere the Russos won't think to look. I'll explain everything when we get there." After hanging up, Emma called Dr. Chen, requesting emergency family leave. The older woman's relief was palpable. Having Emma out of the hospital removed a variable, a reminder of that night in Bay 7. "Take care of yourself, Richardson," Dr. Chen said quietly. "And be careful. Whatever you're mixed up in, just be careful." Next, Emma called her mother. This conversation was harder. "Mom, I need to go away for a few weeks. Family friend needs help out of state." Rose Richardson wasn't fooled. "Emma Rose, I've known you for 26 years. You're a terrible liar. What's really going on?" Emma closed her eyes against the tears. "I can't explain right now, but I need you to trust me. I'm safe, I'll be safe, but I need to be away for a while. The men watching our buildings, they're going to stay. Their protection, Mom. Don't be afraid of them." "Emma, you're scaring me." "I know, I'm sorry. But please, just trust me. I'll call when I can. I love you." She hung up before her mother could protest further, guilt washing over her, adding to her mother's stress, lying to her. It went against everything Emma believed in. But the alternative was telling the truth, that she'd saved a crime boss's life and was now under his protection because rival criminals wanted her dead. Some truths were too dangerous to share. Saturday morning arrived with brutal cold, temperatures dropping to 15 degrees Fahrenheit. Emma stood outside her apartment building at 6 a.m., a large duffel bag at her feet, watching the black SUV pull up. Vincent emerged, nodding curtly. "Ms. Richardson, let me take that." He loaded her bag efficiently, then opened the rear door. Emma climbed in and found herself face to face with Dante Moretti. He looked different this morning, dressed in dark jeans, a heavy leather jacket, casual but expensive. His hair was slightly disheveled, as if he'd run his hands through it repeatedly, and those dark eyes studied her with an intensity that made her breath catch. "Ready?" he asked simply. "No, but I'm here anyway." That ghost of a smile touched his lips. "Honest. I appreciate that." The drive took over 3 hours, heading north through Illinois into Wisconsin. They passed through small towns dusted with snow, farmland giving way to forests, civilization becoming sparser. Emma watched the landscape change, feeling like she was traveling to another world entirely. Finally, they turned down a private road marked only by a weathered sign reading Pine Ridge. The road wound through dense forest for another 20 minutes before opening onto a clearing. The property was stunning. A large lodge-style house, all wood and stone and huge windows, overlooking a frozen lake. Smoke curled from 2 chimneys. Solar panels gleamed on the roof. A separate guest house sat 50 yards away, and Emma could see what looked like a boathouse at the lake's edge. Welcome to my sanctuary, Dante said as the SUV stopped. 300 acres. Completely private. No neighbors for miles. Cell service is spotty, but we have satellite internet. The house has everything you'll need. Emma climbed out, the cold hitting her like a physical force. The air was crystalline, so clean it almost hurt to breathe after Chicago's pollution. It's beautiful, she admitted. It's the only place I feel truly safe. Dante moved toward the front door. Come inside. I'll show you around. The interior was even more impressive. Soaring ceilings with exposed beams, a massive stone fireplace dominating the great room, furniture that managed to be both rustic and elegant. Everything was warm, inviting, the complete opposite of what Emma expected from a crime lord's safe house. Kitchen's fully stocked, Dante said, giving her a tour. Mrs. Kowalski, my housekeeper, comes 3 times a week, but she lives in town. Security is here full-time, but they stay in the guest house unless there's a problem. Your room is upstairs, east side. Best morning light. He led her up a wide staircase to the 2nd floor. The bedroom he indicated was spacious with a king-size bed, ensuite bathroom, and windows overlooking the lake. It's perfect, Emma said, genuinely touched. Thank you. I want you to be comfortable. Dante leaned against the doorframe. Emma, while we're here, you're not a prisoner. You're free to go anywhere on the property. Use anything you want. The only rule is you don't leave without security. The Russos have resources. I don't think they'll find us here, but I'm not taking chances. What about you? Are you staying here? Most of the time. I'll need to go back to Chicago occasionally, handle business. But Vincent can manage most things remotely. He paused. I don't want to leave you alone more than necessary. Something in his tone made Emma's pulse quicken. Because of the danger? Because Dante seemed to struggle with words, unusual for a man who commanded with such confidence. Because I want to know you, the real you, not just the nurse who saved my life, but the person underneath, and that requires time. Emma should have been frightened by the implication. Instead, she felt something warm unfurl in her chest. Curiosity, maybe, or the first stirrings of something more dangerous. I should unpack, she said, needing distance to process. Of course, come down when you're ready. I'll make lunch. After he left, Emma sat on the edge of the bed, her mind spinning. She was in the middle of nowhere with a man who casually discussed murder. She should be terrified. Instead, she felt curious, and maybe, just maybe, a little bit excited. The first week passed in a strange, suspended reality. Emma fell into a rhythm. Mornings spent reading by the fireplace, afternoons walking the property with security trailing discreetly behind, evenings having dinner with Dante and discovering layers to him she never expected. He cooked. Actually cooked, not just heated frozen meals. Italian food, learned from his grandmother before she died. He moved around the kitchen with easy confidence, telling stories about growing up on the South Side, his father's restaurant that had been a front for less legal activities. I wanted to be a chef, he admitted one evening over homemade pasta. Before everything changed, I thought I'd go to culinary school, maybe open my own place, something legitimate. What happened? My father died, and I inherited an empire on the verge of collapse. I was 25, fresh out of business school, and suddenly responsible for 50 men and their families. Men who would have been killed or imprisoned if I didn't step up. Dante's expression darkened. So I stepped up, and I discovered I was good at it. Really good. Better than my father ever was. Do you regret it? Every day. The honesty in his voice was painful. And not at all. It's complicated. Emma found herself telling him things she'd never shared with anyone. About her father's death, the guilt of not being able to save him. About watching her mother's diagnosis, feeling helpless as the disease slowly stole her strength. About the crushing weight of debt and responsibility that made every day a struggle. You're strong, Dante said quietly. Stronger than most people I know. To carry all that and still have compassion for strangers, that's rare. Or stupid, Emma countered. No, never stupid. His eyes held hers. Compassion isn't weakness, Emma. It's the hardest strength there is. They played chess in the evenings, Emma discovering that Dante was a brilliant strategist who still managed to let her win occasionally. They watched old movies, argued about books, found common ground in unexpected places, and slowly, almost imperceptibly, the distance between them began to shrink. On the 8th day, everything changed. Emma woke to raised voices downstairs. She threw on clothes and hurried down to find Dante, Vincent, and two security men clustered around a laptop. "What's wrong?" she asked. Dante looked up, his face carved from stone. "The Russos hit one of our distribution centers last night. Killed 3 of our men, left a message." He turned the laptop toward her. Security footage showed carnage, bodies, blood, and spray painted on the wall. "Where's your nurse?" Emma's legs went weak. "They know about me. They know someone treated me. They don't know who yet." Vincent's voice was grim. "But they're looking. They've been asking questions at hospitals, putting out feelers. It's only a matter of time," Dante said quietly. "Once they identify you, they'll go after your mother to draw you out." Emma's heart stopped. "My mother is already being moved to a secure location." Dante stood, moving toward her. "I sent a team 2 hours ago. She's safe, Emma. I promise you, she's safe. You should have told me. I'm telling you now, and I'm telling you that we need to accelerate our timeline. I was planning to wait, to gather more intelligence. But I can't wait anymore. Not with your name potentially out there." "Accelerate what?" Dante exchanged glances with Vincent. "The hit on the Russo warehouse. We move tonight. Take out their operation. Send a message that attacking us has consequences. And hopefully, in the chaos, they forget about looking for a nurse." "You're going to start a war," Emma whispered. "The war already started when they tried to kill me." Dante's voice was steel. "I'm just going to finish it." Emma watched him transform before her eyes. The man who'd cooked her dinner and told her stories becoming someone harder, colder. The crime boss she'd seen glimpses of now fully present. "I'm leaving in an hour," Dante said. "Vincent stays with you, plus 4 security. You'll be safe here. I'll be back by morning. And if you're not?" Their eyes met and Emma saw the truth. He might not come back. This operation was dangerous and even the best plans could fail. Then Vincent gets you and your mother somewhere completely new. New identities, new lives. You'll be safe, Emma, no matter what. Before she could stop herself, Emma crossed the room and grabbed his hand. "Don't die, please. I didn't save your life just to watch you throw it away." Dante's fingers tightened on hers. "I'll come back, I promise." Then he was gone, taking half the security team with him, leaving Emma alone with Vincent and the terrible waiting. The hours crawled by with agonizing slowness. Emma couldn't eat, couldn't read, could barely sit still. She paced the great room while Vincent monitored communications, his expression unreadable. "He'll be fine," Vincent said finally, around midnight. "I've been with Dante for 12 years. He survived worse than this." "Have you?" Emma asked. "Cared about someone in this life?" Vincent's jaw tightened. "Once. Long time ago. It didn't end well." "What happened?" "She couldn't handle what I did. What I was. She tried, but eventually the darkness was too much. She left, and I let her go. Better that than watch her slowly die inside." Emma absorbed this. "Is that what you think will happen? With me and Dante? I think you're already in deeper than you realize. And I think when he gets back, if he gets back, you'll have to decide how deep you're willing to go." At 3:47 a.m., Vincent's phone rang. He answered immediately, his face transforming with relief. "Understood. See you soon." He looked at Emma. "It's done. They're coming back. Minor injuries, but everyone's alive." Emma collapsed onto the sofa, tears streaming down her face. Relief, exhaustion, fear all mixing together. When Dante walked through the door 40 minutes later, Emma's control shattered. She launched herself at him, and he caught her despite the wince of pain, holding her tight. "I'm okay," he murmured into her hair. "I'm okay, Emma." She pulled back enough to see him. Blood on his jacket that wasn't his, exhaustion in his eyes, but alive, whole. And then, before she could think about consequences or complications or all the reasons this was impossible, Emma kissed him. For a moment, Dante froze. Then his hands cupped her face and he was kissing her back with an intensity that made the world fall away. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Dante pressed his forehead to hers. "Emma," he whispered, "this is the point of no return. If we cross this line—" "We already crossed it," Emma interrupted. "The moment you walked into my ER. The moment I chose to help you. We've been crossing lines since the beginning. This is different." "I know." Emma met his eyes, seeing the vulnerability beneath the violence. "I know exactly what this is, and I'm choosing it anyway." Dante searched her face looking for doubt, for fear, finding only determination and something that looked dangerously like trust. "Then God help us both," he said softly, before kissing her again. Dawn broke over the frozen lake, painting the snow-covered pines in shades of gold and rose. Emma woke in Dante's arms, their bodies tangled together in his bedroom, the events of the previous night replaying in vivid detail. They'd crossed every line, shattered every boundary, and Emma felt no regret, only a strange sense of rightness that terrified her more than anything else. Dante stirred, his dark eyes opening to focus on her face. "Morning," he murmured, his voice rough with sleep. "Morning." Emma traced the edge of the bandage covering his shoulder wound, healing well, though he'd stressed it during the warehouse operation. "How are you feeling?" "Like I'm the luckiest man alive." His fingers brushed her cheek. "And the most damned." Before Emma could respond, his phone erupted with urgent buzzing. Dante tensed, reaching for it. His expression darkened as he read. "What is it?" Emma asked, fear creeping into her voice. "The Russos are retaliating, faster than we expected." He was already moving, pulling on clothes. "They hit 2 of our legitimate businesses overnight, burned them to the ground, and they've put out a contract, $500,000 for information leading to Moretti's nurse." Emma's blood went cold. $500,000? They're desperate. We humiliated them, destroyed their primary operation. Now they're lashing out. Dante turned to her, his face grave. "Emma, this changes everything. That kind of money will bring every 2-bit criminal and desperate person out of the woodwork. Someone at the hospital will talk. It's only a matter of time. My mother is still secure, but we need to move faster. End this before they find you." He sat beside her, taking her hands. "I'm calling a meeting. All the families. Today." Emma's eyes widened. "What kind of meeting?" "A sit-down, neutral territory, representatives from every major organization in Chicago. We're going to force the Russos to the table, negotiate a peace, or demonstrate that continued war will cost everyone too much. And if they refuse?" Dante's expression turned deadly. "Then we eliminate them. Completely. No half measures, no mercy. Their entire leadership structure removed." The casual way he discussed mass murder should have horrified Emma. Instead, she understood the brutal calculus. This war would continue escalating until someone won decisively. And every day it continued was another day she and her mother were in danger. "I want to come with you," she said suddenly. "Absolutely not. Dante, listen to me. I'm the reason for this meeting. My existence is what's driving the Russos crazy. If I'm there, if they see I'm under your protection, it changes the dynamic. It makes you a target in a room full of criminals. I'm already a target." Emma stood, pacing. "But this way, I'm not a ghost, not a rumor. I'm real. And maybe, just maybe, seeing that I'm a person, not a weakness to exploit, will help end this." Dante studied her for a long moment. "You don't understand what these meetings are like. The violence simmering under every word. The way men like us think, operate. It's dangerous, Emma. Everything about this is dangerous. But I'm tired of hiding, tired of being protected like a helpless victim. I saved your life, Dante. I deserve to be part of ending the threat that saving you created." Vincent appeared in the doorway, his expression dark. "Boss, we need to move. The meeting's set for 2 p.m. Salvatore's restaurant, neutral ground. All families confirmed." Dante's jaw tightened. "Vincent, talk to her. Explain why she can't come." Vincent looked between them, then surprisingly said, "Actually, she might be right." Dante's head snapped toward him. "What?" "The Russos think she's a weakness, a secret you're desperate to hide. If you walk in with her openly, it flips the narrative, shows them you're not afraid, that she's not a liability to exploit. It's a power move." Vincent paused. "It's also incredibly risky, but it might work." "Absolutely not." Dante stood, his voice final. "I won't put her in that room." "Then put me somewhere they can see me," Emma countered. "Adjacent room, behind glass. Somewhere visible but protected. They need to know I exist, that I'm not afraid, that you're not afraid." The 2 men exchanged glances. Finally, Dante exhaled sharply. "Modified version. You come to Chicago, you stay in a secure location near the meeting. If necessary, if the moment calls for it, you can be seen. But you're not walking into that restaurant, Emma. That's non-negotiable." It wasn't what she wanted, but Emma recognized a compromise when she heard one. "Okay." The drive back to Chicago was tense. Dante made calls continuously, coordinating with his organization, ensuring every angle was covered. Emma sat quietly, processing the reality of what was about to happen. They arrived at a downtown high-rise, a luxury building that looked like any other. But the penthouse apartment Dante led her to was a fortress, Reinforced walls, bulletproof windows, security systems that looked military grade. "You stay here," Dante said, his voice tight with stress. "Vincent and 2 men remain with you. I'll have an earpiece. You'll be able to hear everything that happens at the meeting. If I need you, Vincent will bring you, but Emma," he gripped her shoulders. "If something goes wrong, if this turns violent, you run. Don't wait. Don't try to help. Vincent gets you out, gets you to your mother, and you both disappear, understand? Nothing's going to go wrong." Emma touched his face, feeling the tension in his jaw. "You're going to end this, one way or another." He kissed her deeply, desperately. "I need you to know, whatever happens today, these last 2 weeks have been the best of my life. You made me remember what it felt like to be human. I'll never forget that." "Dante, you're scaring me." "Good. Be scared. It might keep you alive." He pulled back, his expression hardening into the crime boss she'd first met. "I'll see you in a few hours." Then he was gone, taking most of the security team with him. Vincent set up the communication system, and Emma found herself listening to Dante's arrival at Salvatore's, an old Italian restaurant in Little Italy that apparently served as neutral ground for Chicago's criminal underworld. She heard greetings, tense exchanges, the scrape of chairs, then a voice she didn't recognize, older, gravelly with cigarettes and age. "Moretti, you've got some balls calling this meeting after what you did to our warehouse." "Russo." Dante's voice was ice. "You tried to kill me, I survived. You murdered 3 of my men, I responded proportionally. Now we're here to end this before it escalates further." "End it? You humiliated us. You failed to kill me. That's on you, not me." A pause. "But I'm willing to let it end here. No more retaliation, no more escalation. We go back to our territories. Maintain the peace that served everyone well for years." Another voice, younger, filled with rage. "After you destroyed 10 million worth of our product, after you killed my uncle. Your uncle tried to kill me, Marco." Dante's voice hardened. "He failed. In our world, failure has consequences. You know this." "And the nurse?" The older Russo voice again. "The one you're so desperate to protect?" Silence. Emma held her breath. "There is no nurse," Dante said flatly. "There's a doctor who patched me up and was paid well for discretion. That's all." "Your intelligence is bad, Salvatore. You're chasing ghosts. $500,000 says otherwise. $500,000 wasted. But if you want to keep throwing money at rumors, be my guest. Meanwhile, we can end this war, or we can keep destroying each other's operations until the feds decide we're all too visible and come down on everyone." A new voice. Calm, authoritative. "Moretti has a point. This war benefits no one. The Russos made their play. It failed. Honor has been satisfied on both sides. Time to return to business." Emma recognized the voice from Vincent's briefing. Carlo De Luca, head of the most powerful family in Chicago. His word carried weight. "The De Lucas want peace," Salvatore Russo growled. "Easy for you to say. You lost nothing. We all lose if this continues," De Luca replied. "The Moretti organization has demonstrated its strength. The Russos have demonstrated their willingness to fight. Now both sides demonstrate wisdom. End this today." Tense silence stretched. Emma could hear her own heartbeat thundering in her ears. "Fine." Marco Russo's voice, tight with suppressed rage. "But the contract stands until we're satisfied this nurse doesn't exist. You produce her. Prove she's nobody important, the contract gets pulled." "No," Dante said flatly. "Then we have a problem." Emma made her decision in that moment. Before Vincent could stop her, she stood. "Take me there. Now." "Ms. Richardson, that's not—" "Now, Vincent, or I walk there myself." Vincent's eyes narrowed, calculating. Then, surprisingly, he nodded. "Stay behind me. Do exactly what I say. If anything happens, you run. Clear?" "Clear." Salvatore's restaurant was unassuming from the outside. Red brick, small windows, a door that had seen better decades. But inside was elegant, old-world Italian with white tablecloths and oil paintings of the Tuscan countryside. 8 men sat around a large table in the private back room. Emma recognized Dante immediately, his back straight, his expression carved from granite. The tension in the room was palpable, violence simmering just beneath the surface of civility. Vincent opened the door and every head turned. Hands moved toward weapons before freezing as Emma stepped into view. She walked forward calmly, channeling every ounce of courage she possessed. Dante's expression transformed. Shock, fear, fury all flashing across his face. "Gentlemen," Emma said, her voice steady, I'm the nurse you're looking for. Emma Richardson. I work at Westside Medical Center. I treated Mr. Moretti's gunshot wounds on October 18th. I've been paid for my discretion and I've maintained it. I'm not a threat to anyone in this room. Salvatore Russo leaned forward, his eyes predatory. You're the nurse, the one he's been protecting. I'm a nurse who did her job. Nothing more. Emma met his gaze without flinching. Mr. Moretti has ensured my safety because your people made threats. But I'm not his girlfriend, not his confidant, not his weakness. I'm a civilian who saved a life and wants to return to her normal existence. Then prove it, Marco Russo demanded. Walk away. Right now. Leave his protection. Go back to your life. If you're nothing to him, it shouldn't matter. Every eye in the room turned to Dante. Emma saw the war raging behind his eyes. The truth he couldn't speak. The lie he needed to maintain. She's a civilian, Dante said, his voice carefully neutral, who treated me and was compensated. If she chooses to leave my protection, that's her choice. I have no claim on her. The words were a knife to Emma's heart, even knowing they were necessary. She turned to face him fully. Then we're done. The contract can be lifted. I go back to my life. You go back to yours. Everyone wins. Something flickered in Dante's eyes. Pain, understanding, and something that looked like pride. The contract is lifted, Salvatore Russo said, his tone calculating. If she walks out that door right now, goes back to her apartment, resumes her normal life, no more protection, no more contact with Moretti, then we're satisfied. Emma nodded. Agreed. She turned toward the door, forcing herself not to look back. Vincent moved to follow, but Dante's voice stopped him. Let her go. She's not our concern anymore. The walk to the door felt like miles. Emma's heart was breaking, but her mind was clear. This was the only way to end it, to remove herself as a target, to free Dante from the vulnerability she represented. At the doorway, she paused. For what it's worth, Mr. Moretti, you're welcome, for saving your life. Then she stepped into the Chicago afternoon, free and utterly alone. Vincent caught up with her a block away, 3 security men flanking them. That was the bravest, stupidest thing I've ever seen, he said quietly. Did it work? The contract's being pulled as we speak. The Russos are satisfied. You're no longer a target. He paused. But you need to know what Dante said in there, what he had to say. I know. It was necessary. Emma blinked back tears. Take me to my mother. Then we'll figure out what comes next. Her mother was in a safe house in Evanston, exhausted and confused, but safe. The reunion was tearful, Rose demanding explanations that Emma couldn't fully provide. I helped someone powerful, Emma said carefully. It created complications, but it's over now. We're safe. That night, alone in the guest bedroom of the safe house, Emma stared at her phone. No calls, no messages. Dante was respecting the fiction they'd created, that she meant nothing to him. But at 2 a.m., a text appeared from an unknown number. You saved me twice. Once in the ER, once in that restaurant. I'll never forget either. Be safe, Emma. Be happy. You deserve everything good this world has to offer. D. Emma read it through tears, then deleted it. Evidence couldn't exist. The story had to remain intact. 3 weeks later, Emma returned to work at Westside Medical Center. Dr. Chen greeted her with relief and careful questions that Emma deflected. Life resumed its normal rhythm. Shifts at the hospital, visits with her mother, the mundane routine she'd once found oppressive now feeling like a gift. The black sedans were gone. The watchers had disappeared. Emma Richardson was just a nurse again, except late at night when she couldn't sleep. She thought about dark eyes and unexpected gentleness, about a man who'd shown her a world of darkness, but had protected the light in her. She'd saved his life twice, and in doing so, she'd lost a piece of her heart she'd never get back. 6 months passed. Winter gave way to spring, Chicago blooming with new life. Emma threw herself into work, took on extra shifts, visited her mother regularly. The debt was slowly shrinking. Life was good, normal, safe, empty. One April evening, Emma walked out of the hospital after a double shift to find a man leaning against her car, not threatening, just waiting. Vincent Calabresi looked older in the evening light, more tired. Ms. Richardson, Emma's heart began to race. Vincent, is something wrong? Is Dante? He's fine. Took control of the Russo territory after old Salvatore had a heart attack. Marco Russo decided Florida retirement looked better than Chicago war. A slight smile. Everything's quiet now. Peaceful. Then why are you here? Vincent handed her an envelope. From him. He wanted you to have this. Asked me to deliver it when enough time had passed that it wouldn't compromise the agreement. Emma opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a check for $250,000 and a letter in elegant handwriting. Emma, I'm told it's been 6 months. Long enough that this can't be misconstrued as anything but what it is. Payment for services rendered. You saved my life. Twice. This is inadequate compensation, but it's what I can offer. I've set up a trust for your mother's medical care. She'll never have to worry about costs again. It's completely anonymous, untraceable to me. Just accept it as one human helping another. You showed me that goodness still exists in this world, that some people choose compassion even when it's dangerous. I'll carry that knowledge for the rest of my life, however long or short it may be. I hope you're happy, Emma. I hope your life is full of everything you deserve. And I hope sometimes when you think of me, you remember that you made a monster feel human. With gratitude and something I don't have words for. Dante. Emma read it 3 times, tears streaming down her face. Then she looked at Vincent. How is he? Really? Powerful. Respected. Running the most efficient organization in Chicago. Vincent paused. And alone. Always alone. That's the price of what we do. Tell him. Emma struggled for words. Tell him I think about him. That I hope he finds moments of peace. That saving his life was the most important thing I've ever done. Vincent nodded. He already knows. But I'll tell him anyway. As he walked away, Emma looked at the check. Enough to wipe out her debt, to start over, to build the life she'd always wanted. Money that came from darkness but could fund light. She made her decision. She'd take it, use it, build something good from the ashes of those impossible weeks. But she'd never forget the man who'd given her a glimpse of his humanity, even as he lived in a world that demanded he hide it. Emma drove home through spring rain, the check on her passenger seat, Dante's letter pressed against her heart. She'd crossed into his world and somehow found her way back. But part of her, the part that had kissed him in the darkness, that had seen vulnerability beneath violence, remained behind, forever changed. She'd saved a life, and in the process, she'd lived more intensely than she ever had before. That, Emma decided, was worth the price of everything that came after. Epilogue 2 years later. Emma Richardson, now Emma Richardson Hayes, after marrying a kind pediatrician she'd met through work, stood in the newly opened Richardson Medical Clinic, a free healthcare facility for underserved communities, funded by an anonymous donation. Her mother's Parkinson's was managed well with the best care money could buy. Emma's debt was gone. Her life was peaceful, happy, normal. But sometimes late at night she still dreamed of dark eyes and dangerous promises. Of a man who'd shown her that the world wasn't simple, that people contained multitudes, that even in darkness, humanity could survive. She heard he'd gone legitimate, or as legitimate as men like him ever went. Rumors suggested the Moretti organization now focused primarily on legal enterprises, using their power to maintain peace rather than wage war. She hoped it was true, hoped he'd found some measure of redemption. And when she saved lives in her clinic, one patient at a time, one act of compassion after another, Emma knew that her brief journey into darkness had taught her the most important lesson. Sometimes saving a life saves your own.